Vice President Biden just did a Google Hangout, and in case you didn't get a chance to see it, I'm going to leave a link in the description below for you to watch the entire video. But I wanted to take an opportunity to talk about a few of the things that he spoke about during this meetup.
Now, one of the reasons why the assault weapons ban makes sense, even though it accounts for a small percentage of the murders or those who die as a consequence of a weapon every year, is because police organizations overwhelmingly support it because they get outgunned.
Now, I can't speak for all the law enforcement out there in the world, but from my experience, I know LAPD officers, I know LAPD SWAT, I know Tennessee Highway Patrol, I know local law enforcement, I know Sheriff's Department, and not one single person that I know would support an assault weapons ban. Now, as far as being outgunned, that's simply not true. Law enforcement and military have access to stuff like submachine guns, select fire rifles, or assault rifles. An AR-15 is not an assault rifle, it's not a select fire machine gun. An M16 or M4 is. Law enforcement has access to those. Law enforcement has access to personal defense weapons like MP7s. They also have access to stuff like submachine guns. Civilians simply don't. They just don't have access to it. So as far as the argument's concerned about being outgunned, it's simply not true. Some states take it a step further, like California, where they ban 50 BMGs, also armor-piercing rounds. Stuff like that just simply doesn't exist in certain states. Law enforcement has a significant advantage over law-abiding citizens. Now, I say that because criminals are always going to find a way.
Police organizations overwhelmingly support it because they get outgunned.
While I might be limited to all the law enforcement that I know personally, I can't speak for all of them out there. So I did a little bit of research, and I have overwhelmingly found that law enforcement agencies across the country do not support an assault weapons ban. From Oregon, Utah, Tennessee, Georgia, all the way across the U.S., they overwhelmingly do not support an assault weapons ban, contrasting what Mr. Biden said. Just a couple examples that I saw was the sheriff in Oregon who sent a letter to Mr. Biden stating that he will not enforce any type of executive order or any legislation that infringes upon his citizens' constitutional rights, nor will he allow any federal authorities to come in to try and enforce them. Taking it one step further, in an article you guys surely want to check out, the link will be in the description below, is the Sheriff's Department in Utah that said that they are willing to put their lives on the line to defend their constitutional rights of their citizens. It's a pretty bold statement, and I've yet to see anyone on the other side of the argument come out nearly as passionate as these guys.
Mr. Biden, when you say the rational, what would you say to people saying that some of this legislation, especially against AR, when you mention the police deaths, it's creating policy based on outliers rather than really hitting the real issue?
Well, I think, look, we do get to the real issue, and I assume, Philip, we're going to get a chance to talk about it in this chat. We do get to the real issue, which is the vast majority of gun deaths. And by the way, there's been over 1,200 just in America just since what happened up in Connecticut in Newtown.
To be fair, Phil called him out on this. While there were 1,200 firearm-related homicides since Newtown, a very small percentage of them were with assault weapons as defined by Dianne Feinstein's bill.
The facts. So I did go to FBI.gov, which I have up. I think it is unbiased research that has shown that since the assault weapon ban expired, while firearm sales have increased, the number of murders have gone down. And you previously mentioned the 1,200 firearm-related deaths, but not assault rifles. So what would you say to the people that say, yes, you are infringing on our rights, not for sporting or for hunting, but in California, everyone talks about the big earthquake or some terrible natural disaster as a last line of defense. What would you say to those people?
Well, I would say there's an awful, guess what? A shotgun will keep you a lot safer. A double-barrel shotgun than the assault weapons in somebody's hands who doesn't know how to use it, even one who does know how to use it. You know, it's harder to use an assault weapon and hit something than it is a shotgun, okay? So you want to keep people away in the earthquake, buy some shotgun shells.
Now, this got a huge reaction from a lot of the blogs out there, and I know I'm going to be preaching to the choir for most of my audience, but I don't know really anybody with a double-barrel shotgun. And I mean, I do some videos with some pretty exotic weapons. I mean, from a Webley revolver to MP7s, and I really don't know anybody with a double-barrel shotgun. But I will say this about assault rifles or an AR-15. not a select fire machine gun. An AR-15 is a very accurate rifle. Now, in the event of a catastrophic event, you would want a scalpel. You would want something like an AR-15 or a Mini 14 or something like that where you can be precise. You can know your target, you could disable it if need be, so you don't always have to use lethal force. A shotgun is only going to give you a range of a very limited area, but an M4 or short barrel rifle, something like that, would give you more variations in what you could use in different situations.
With regard to violent crime going down, I'm very proud it went down. It went proud in large part, the reason it went down is we put 100,000 cops on the street. But that didn't mean the cops were safer as a consequence of these guns. The cops were less safe the more assault weapons were on the street.
Now, looking at the stats at FBI.gov and the Department of Justice, which I'll put the links in the description below, the stats don't actually fluctuate that much. The only fluctuation in homicides is a total overall decline since the assault weapons ban has been lifted.
They don't account for even not only a bulk, they account for a small percentage of the gun crimes in America. More people out there get shot with a Glock that has cartridges that you can have magazines that can put 2, 10, 8, 12, 15, 30 shells in it than from any assault weapon you see. I'm much less concerned, quite frankly, about what you call an assault weapon than I am about magazines and the number of rounds that can be held in a magazine.
So if an assault weapon isn't as accurate as a double-barrel shotgun and you're not concerned about them nearly as much as a Glock, why are we having a conversation about an assault weapons ban?
So look, I'm not making the argument that this will end crime or I make the argument this way. There is no sporting need that I'm aware of to have a magazine that holds 50 rounds. None that I'm aware of. And I'm a sportsman.
I use 30-round magazines when I go varmint hunting. There's a sporting application for you. But the Second Amendment doesn't talk about sporting applications. It's there in the event that we need to protect ourselves.
Number two, there is no diminution of your ability to physically protect yourself having 10 clips in a round. Having 10 rounds in a clip instead of 30 or 40 rounds. And what it does do, now for a professional, it only takes you go to the FBI, they'll show it takes a second and 3/4 for a pro to change the clip. But not all these people are pros. And so if you just if it took another, a minute and a half, 2 minutes, who knows who else might have been alive? And those kids may be alive, some of them.
Keep in mind, criminals, by definition, don't follow the law, so they're always going to have access to firearms and high-capacity magazines. So what you're doing is potentially costing a life with a magazine restriction. One could argue that in the event of a life-or-death situation, that an amateur shooter or a law-abiding citizen had to switch out magazines, ended up costing them valuable time, which might end up in return costing them their lives. When people talk about, well, if we can save one life, it's still worth doing. Well, I don't buy into that, because if you really wanted to address the problem, you need to come up with a solution that will help remedy the whole situation. Or if you want to talk about saving one life, let's talk about alcohol. Alcohol-related incidents and traffic accidents cause more fatalities than any firearms-related incident annually. Is an innocent life lost in a drunk driving accident worth any less tragic than in a firearms-related homicide? No. Now, I'd like to keep the conversation going in the comments below, and while I might disagree with Mr. Biden on a lot of things, I have to applaud him. He followed proper firearm safety by keeping his finger off the hypothetical trigger during his presentation. We'll see y'all next time.
And so make your voices heard. That's one of the reasons I wanted to be in this chat. There's tens of thousands of people listening to this. I don't care which side of the issue you're on. Pick those things that you think can have a positive impact. If you don't agree with me on assault weapons, then you probably agree with me, and not then, you may agree with me on background checks, making them universal. Make your voices heard.